What's up, guys? We got college bowl slate that's starting early at 11 a.m. my time in my city. So that's awesome. In 2 hours, I figured I'd get the daily breakdown out, even though I don't have a play on that particular game. I do have one bowl play today, even though the line has moved a little bit. I apologize for not getting this out earlier, but I think the number still might even be good at where it is now. I don't know. In the bowl that I am on, and I don't even think I'm on any of the other anything else today. The rest of the card just is really horrendous today. Doesn't look good to me. And I still have to get my NFL video out, which I will do at some point a little bit later after this. Last night was a winning night for me, even though it was 1-1. The Detroit Red Wings did not get there, although I think that game was probably closer than the final score indicated. They were in that game for much of it. They were down by like 1 goal for a lot of it, and then it just kind of unraveled a bit, unfortunately. Playing them as like an underdog, though, I play those. I bet like less to win the same amount that I am betting to win on like the regular like minus 110 spread bet. So I put like less money on the money line underdogs like that a little bit to win the same amount. So because of that, and because the NBA underdog money line cashed, I wound up winning a bit last night, so that wasn't bad. Cleveland Cavaliers got there, even though things were not looking good. I did not anticipate that Donovan Mitchell would not be back after the holiday break. They had multiple days off. He is still hurt, I guess. He did not come back. I believe he did not play in that game for Cleveland. And I took 4, and the line dropped to 3.5. It looked like thinking he was going to play. Then later in the day, it moved up to 6.5, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. I get a bad number yet again, although it seems like much of the time, even the majority of the time, I get these bad numbers. Like the situation that I'm on is good enough that it winds up winning anyway, and that was the case last night. And it was looking bad early. Cleveland Cavs had a terrible first half. They were getting smoked in the first half, and they had a really good second half, came all the way back and won outright. So I think Dallas, as I said in that handicap, I think they were looking ahead to tonight's game against Minnesota. I think they got caught. I think that was the case. I think Luka did play in that game, but yeah, I just think they probably started paying more attention to the Minnesota game. So good thing that one came through. Let's talk about these bowls, man. There are 4 more bowls today. The 11 a.m. one is the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, which is one of the newer bowls. I think the winner of this one gets a wasabi bath, right? They get to snort it right up their nose. No, I don't know. I don't even know what the company Wasabi actually does. I don't even know if it has anything to do with the sushi condiment or not. But this is SMU at Boston College, I guess, because Boston College has like a semi-home for this because it's in Fenway Park in Boston, obviously. SMU is up from a 9.5-point favorite to an 11-point favorite with 79% of the tickets on them, but 73% of the cash. This is a situation where SMU, they won their conference, man. They won the American Athletic, I believe. They beat Tulane, pulled off a mild upset of Tulane in the conference championship. And now, what is their reward? Oh, you get to go play at 11 a.m. in 40-degree rain in Fenway Park. That's what everybody wants to do, right? You got to go up to Boston into the cold, into rain, and play this game. That's awesome. They're certainly going to see that as a reward, right? Probably not. I would lean to taking the points with Boston College here. Like, I don't see how SMU is going to totally get up for a game like this. They're playing a team that is not a very good team. I don't know if they're going to see this as much of a reward after winning their conference. Like, really? Is this going to really matter that much to them, this being in this particular game? I think they probably thought they were going to be in a somewhat better bowl than this. I mean, Tulane won the conference last year, but they had a really good season last year, and they were in a New Year's Six bowl. So I think SMU probably thought they'd be in a bowl somewhere between this and the New Year's Six. But nope, they're in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, and this is going to be a game where, like, I live pretty close to it, and the tickets are probably ridiculously cheap, and I still have no interest in going to this game. That's how bad this game is. But I do think that the motivation is probably going to be more on the Boston College side. Neither of these programs have won a bowl really that recently. I think BC, it goes back to like 2014, maybe somewhere in that range, and SMU all the way back to like 2012 when they were pulling off upsets in the Hawaii Bowl back then. It seems like the underdog always wins in the Hawaii Bowl. So both of these programs have not won a bowl in quite a while. So maybe that will be like a slight motivating factor. And I think there aren't really any like huge like opt-outs in this game. Let me look real quick, but I'm trying to watch. I've been watching CBS's opt-out tracker, and it seems like some of the things they have are not totally up to date, because what I didn't get right yesterday was that the reason why West Virginia had gone up to such a big favorite was because what was his name? Not Mayo, the Mayo Bowl, and in the Mayo Bowl there, but Drake May, I think is his name, the quarterback for North Carolina. He had opted out of that game. That was not listed on the opt-outs list, but he did not play in that game. So that seemed to hurt North Carolina. Although, again, you see teams that have a bunch of opt-outs that actually perform well with all the backups getting in there. They think that it's their shot, and that was the case with USC yesterday. That was kind of a shocking result, even though I actually wound up picking USC to cover the larger number that I had in my bowl pools just because the line had crashed down. So, yeah, still kind of a crazy result there. But as far as the Wasabi Fenway Bowl here, there aren't that many transfers here. I think probably Boston College has slightly more than SMU does, but I don't know if they're that relevant, really. I think both of these teams, they're key players are still going to be playing in this game. So it comes down to which team is going to be more motivated. I don't know. It's tough to say. And SMU did finish the season stronger. BC was sitting at 6-3 and they didn't win another game. I don't know if it was just well, we just became bowl eligible and now we're just not gonna play anymore. I don't know what the case was with BC, but they had a pretty bad finish, losing 3 games in a row to end the season. Although at least one of them was to Miami, one of them was to Virginia Tech, who at least did make a bowl. But BC, yeah, not a very impressive. They didn't do very impressively this year, although they beat a couple of teams that did make bowls, at least Georgia Tech and Syracuse, and they played that close game against Florida State, even though Florida State, I think, was kind of blowing them out of the building and just stopped. They took their foot off the gas, and BC came back. So I don't know, but I lean BC just because I think this particular bowl in an early time slot like this, in bad weather like this, in the cold, I just don't think SMU is going to see it as that much of a reward. And that brings us to the game I actually have a play on in the afternoon today after that one. Rutgers and Miami in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Bad Boy Mowers, they were sponsoring the, the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa for a little while. Now they're sponsoring the Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium. This is similar to the SMU BC one, but I think the market read is just all over Rutgers here, man. I played Rutgers +1 a couple days ago, and I didn't think the line was going to move as much as it has, but Rutgers is sitting at a 2-point favorite. Now, I think as long as you're getting a pick the winner price, it was up to 3 at one point, and it came back down a little bit. I think as long as you're playing to pick the winner here, basically, I think you can lay 1 or 2 with Rutgers, and I still think that's probably okay. Or maybe play the money line if you can find a good money line price. The public is on Miami here. 52% of the tickets on Miami, but 70% of the cash on Rutgers, really moving that line from it looks like it opened at Miami -5.5. However, Miami's quarterback, Van Dyke, he has hit the transfer portal. I believe he has already committed to Wisconsin, so he's gone. So he's not playing for Miami in this game, so that is affecting the line a little bit. But the other thing is, I think Miami had a disappointing season, man. Miami, even though neither of these teams have actually won a bowl that recently, you would think that Miami, because they're probably in more bowls than Rutgers is, you think they'd have won one more recently, but I don't really think that's the case. I think both of these teams go back several years since they've actually won a bowl game, but both of these programs. But when you're Miami, this is similar to SMU, man. You're a warm weather team like this, and your reward on the season, and this is even worse for Miami, I think, because they had an underwhelming season where they were ranked. They're supposed to be a pretty good team, competing in the ACC, and they fell way short of that goal. And now they're in the Pinstripe Bowl. Your reward is to go up into cold rain into New York City. I assume it's raining there as it is in Boston here. I don't know, but it's probably around the same type of weather there. You have to go up into the Bronx and play in the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't know if they're going to be that motivated for this. Their starting quarterback is gone for this game, which we've seen so far in these bowls at the transfer portal. That can go either way, and it's really tough to gauge the motivation there. But I think this, based on where the market is moving, although the market just moves based on the guys being out, but where I think the motivation is going to fall, I just don't see how Miami can get up for this game. They got Mario Cristobal. He's a coach that is just not a very good coach, just makes a ton of mistakes typically. Hopefully he doesn't overperform in this particular game, but I just don't know how a team like Miami, after such a disappointing season, can get up for the Pinstripe Bowl, whereas at least Rutgers, even though Rutgers crashed in the second half of the season as well. They had a bad second half of the season. They at least have their offensive core there. Their starting core on offense is going to be playing in this game, and they get to play close to home. So, and I don't think they've been in a bowl for a bit. So I think they're going to draw like the home crowd. It's not that far for their fans to go to this game, even though I said I'm not even going to go to the Wasabi Bowl for BC, but Rutgers, they're pretty close to New York City. So is it a situation where they're not going to see it as that much of a reward either? I'm not sure. Like, I think they didn't really expect anything out of this season. So I think the fact that they're going to a bowl might at least have them like a little bit pumped, and they say, hey, we get to play like in a big baseball stadium, at least with our home crowd there. So maybe they'll treat that as kind of a bigger game to some extent. So that's the case with Rutgers there. Although Rutgers, let me look at their bowl history, because were they actually in the Fenway Bowl last year? They might have been. I'm not even sure. No, they were not. So this is like the first like kind of bowl of this kind. Well, Rutgers was actually in one in 2011. Never mind. They played in the Pinstripe Bowl a couple of times actually. In 2011 and 2013, they lost it in 2013, and they, I believe, won it in 2011 with that home crowd there backing them. So that is the case. I like Rutgers. I'm on it +1, and it's up to -2, but what can you do? I think the market is really indicating on Rutgers there, and I think Miami, I just don't see how they have that much motivation, even though I don't like how Rutgers finished the season like really bad. Although I think they ran into some teams that were fighting for getting into getting bowl eligibility as well. But I think Rutgers, I think they're at least going to be the more motivated team to be there. Yeah, so Rutgers down the stretch, when they lost those games, they lost to Ohio State, Iowa, and Penn State. I mean, I don't think you can blame them for losing games to great teams like that, and then great or good teams like that, and they lost to Maryland to finish the season. Maryland is also a team that became bowl eligible, and I think that was that might have been a game where Maryland was fighting for bowl eligibility. I don't even know. Or no, Maryland actually was bowl eligible already. Both teams were. So I don't know what the excuse was on that one for Rutgers dropping that home final on senior day there, but whatever the case may be, maybe they were just hung over from having that really difficult stretch of games. But I like Rutgers in the Pinstripe Bowl. Going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is, I think, a new bowl, or maybe they renamed. I don't know if this was the Cheez-It Bowl or something, and they renamed it because Cheez-It is sponsoring some other bowl. And I don't even know what's going on here, but this is, this used to be the Camping World Bowl, I guess, because it's in Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Unless Camping World has multiple bowls, I don't even know. I don't know what's going on here, but this is the Pop-Tarts Bowl now, and it's NC State and Kansas State. Kansas State's down from 5.5 to 1.5 now, with 63% of the cash on NC State, but 52% of the tickets on NC State. The line is really moving towards NC State, and I think a lot of that has to do with Will Howard, Kansas State's quarterback. He has hit the transfer portal, so he's not playing for Kansas State in this game. He was like their offensive leader, so I think that is going to be a hit. That's why the line has moved this much. And again, just like I said, with any of these other teams that lose their quarterback, it's going to be, will they get up and be like will these backups like rally for this guy, or will they like fall flat? Like, that's what you have to gauge. That's really tough to gauge. I think this game is tough to gauge, but Kansas State, I think, had higher aspirations. Like, during the season, they were ranked. I think they thought they were going to make the Big 12 title game. They definitely had chances to do that, and they fell short of even that. Now they're in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I don't know if they're going to be excited about that, whereas NC State finished really strong, and they were a team that was written off as being like dead when they lost that game to Duke, which I had NC State in that game, and they just didn't even show up, and that dropped them to 3-3, and everybody was saying NC State's just horrible. They're dead. They came out of the bye, and they didn't lose again. They won 6 straight games, and they beat Clemson. They beat who else did they beat? They beat a couple of decent teams there near the end. I think they beat Virginia Tech, who at least is a bowl team, although not really the best. And they beat North Carolina, their big rival, to finish the season. And they beat Miami. So they did beat some decent teams there to wind up 9-3 and ranked. So they actually have the better record. And I think they might be higher ranked than Kansas State as well. So that's one thing that has me hesitating a little bit, because when you have like the team that is the higher ranked team, and the team with the better record, and they're a slight underdog, it's like, what's going on here? Like, does it almost look too easy to take them? I don't know. Like, it looks like, I mean, because NC State does have the cash discrepancy. I kind of consider Kansas State to be the more public of these two teams here. And you can gauge it kind of on like ESPN, like who's picking which team to win. Like NC State has, Kansas State has the majority of picks in ESPN, but those people are less educated than probably like recreational bettors who probably at least know that Will Howard isn't playing in this game. But I don't know. My lean is to NC State because they finished so strong and they were written off as a dead team. So I think they're probably going to be a bit more motivated to be here than Kansas State is. It's a shorter trip for their fans to get down there. Maybe they'll see it as more of a reward. I don't know. It seems like both of these teams are just in bowls every year. So I don't know if there's any added motivation because of, we're in a bowl. Like both of these teams are just in bowls all the time. So that doesn't really matter, I don't think. So my lean would be to NC State there just because I don't trust Kansas State without Will Howard. And that's the way the market is moving there. And then in the Alamo Bowl tonight in San Antonio, Texas, I believe this is always is it always Pac-12 versus Big 12? I think I've seen Big 10 teams be in this game too. I don't know. This is Arizona and Oklahoma. Arizona's favored, and they're up from -1 to -2.5 with juice on the 2.5. So it looks like they've kind of been hovering around that level of favorite for a while. And Kansas State, by the way, had been like a 2.5 point favorite for a while, and they've dropped a little bit more. Arizona's been kind of sitting around like 2.5 or 3 for most of the time that these lines have been out. They have 64% of the cash and 58% of the tickets. And like the average person might look at this and just think, what's going on here? Because Oklahoma is clearly the better team than Arizona, right? Oklahoma is a 2-loss team. They're in the Big 12. They almost made the Big 12 title game. I think they had expectations to do it. They had expectations to probably make the college football playoff, which is why I don't like Oklahoma really in this game. I think they fell way short of expectations here. I think they were a very highly ranked team. They expected to be in the Big 12 title game at the very least and be in the playoff conversation. And they fell well short of that. And now they're sitting in the Alamo Bowl here, and they get Arizona, who Arizona's a team that came from out of nowhere, man. I don't think anybody expected Arizona to do much of anything this year. And the way they started didn't look very good, and they just did great after that. And they just started reeling off all these wins against the better teams in the Pac-12. It was crazy how many of those games Arizona won. Arizona did really well against like some of the better competition in the Pac-12. So I do lean to Arizona in this game. I think they had a much less disappointing season than Oklahoma did. I don't think they had aspirations really at all coming into this season, and they far exceeded those expectations, whereas Oklahoma fell, I think, fairly significantly short of their expectations. And I think you could see that with Oklahoma. Who's their quarterback? Their quarterback is gone for this game. He has hit the transfer portal, and he is going to Oregon. So Oregon, they got Bo Nix still playing in their bowl game, and they're not going to miss a beat because Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma's quarterback, their star quarterback this year, he has hit the transfer portal. He is already going to Oregon. He's committed to Oregon, so that's done. So he's not playing in this game, so that's affecting this line a bit. That's why Arizona is a favorite. I think that was known kind of early on. So what's Oklahoma's offense going to be like without Gabriel, and is that going to like take an unmotivated team? Like I think Oklahoma is a pretty unmotivated team here, but is that going to take them from being unmotivated and make them more motivated to rally around whoever their backup is that's in there? I don't know, but I think their offense is probably going to struggle without their star quarterback in there. So I just can't get on these teams that are just missing key components like this. So I do like Arizona there, and I think it looks suspicious that Arizona is the favorite in this game when people don't see them as being the better team. But without Dylan Gabriel, the line is telling you it is that Arizona is actually the slightly better team here, with Oklahoma being down Dylan Gabriel. So that's the way I look at those games. This is going to be kind of a longer video, even though I don't even have that much to talk about. I'm skipping college basketball entirely. College basketball is kind of resuming from the holiday break here with a few games, but it's mostly good teams against cupcakes. And then there are some decent matchups in some of the smaller conferences and decent matchups in the Pac-12, but I'm just not going to touch it, man, even though you might say you got to lean UCLA because they went into that break on a really bad note, having lost that bad game to Northridge. And then I thought they'd bounce back after getting upset like that. And they played poorly again and lost to Maryland. So I think that break probably will help UCLA. And they're a road favorite against Oregon State. But I just can't get involved in it, man, because I don't know if UCLA, they're up to a 6.5 point favorite from a 6 point favorite. Oregon State's not good, but UCLA, they're definitely like down this year, and Ken Palm only has this at a 4, so I just can't get involved. They're like, maybe UCLA is just not as good as we think they are. Like, they have a good defense, but they can't score. They play really slow paced games, so I think that they're a team that you don't really want to lay a ton of points with on the road, even though Ken Palm also has them as one of the least lucky teams in college basketball. So UCLA may play a little bit better coming out of the break than they did going into it, but I just can't get on that. I can't lay points on the road, especially when I think the public still sees UCLA, the name, know that they're still the better team than Oregon State, and be like, yeah, we're going to lay the points with UCLA there. I can't get involved. So I just don't have much to talk about there. NHL is a really small slate where almost every game involves like a fairly substantial favorite, except for the Kings Vegas one. And both of those teams played yesterday, and I see both of those teams probably showing up for this one, even though LA won last night. They had a really easy game, that I don't think it was a really max effort game. Vegas lost pretty badly yesterday, so you might say Vegas is in bounce back mode, but I think LA is certainly going to be motivated to face Vegas here. I think that's a big matchup for both teams, so I'm just not going to get involved. LA is actually flipped to a road favorite, which is kind of crazy, from plus 105 to minus 109 as a road favorite with 93% of the cash on and 73% of the tickets. So that looks suspicious. So, like, why are the Kings a road favorite over Vegas? Why are the odds makers telling you that the Kings are actually not only the better team than Vegas, but better enough that they're a road favorite? I don't know if there are injuries getting involved here or what's going on there, but I'm just not going to touch it. But that looks suspicious. Over in the NBA, there's nothing that I even want to get involved in this NBA slate, man. There's just not much going on here that I really see as being anything that I want to even look at. The Celtics, I would say, are in the worst situational spot out of any of these teams, but like, I thought they were going to come out a 20-point favorite because they're hosting the Detroit Pistons. This is like a situation where you're going to see like probably the biggest line that you'll ever see in the NBA, at least in these recent years. When do you ever see a team that's close to a 20-point favorite? I thought it would be 20. It came out 18, and the Celtics are down to a 17-point favorite with 60% of the tickets and 69% of the cash on the Pistons. So the Pistons do have the cash discrepancy on them, but is this also saying the Pistons are actually kind of a public underdog there? Are they actually turning into a square underdog? I don't know if I'd go that far because they do have the cash discrepancy on them. So I do still lean the Pistons situationally, but I'm not going to get involved in that game. There's just no way. But the Celtics, they're certainly not in a good spot because they're returning from a road trip, a 4-game road trip that took them to the Pacific Coast, where they lost in overtime to Golden State, and then they smashed Sacramento, smashed the Clippers, and they scored over 140 in both of those games. They did not suffer the Christmas letdown, and they played pretty well again in a tougher game, but they wound up pulling away from the LA Lakers. And I think they did some of this with some injuries there. I think in some of these games, the Celtics have had various of their starters out in these games, which might actually just kind of help them be a little bit rested. Like, I don't know. I don't even know who played in that Christmas game or who didn't really. I can look at the box score here because Porzingis put up big stats there. It looks like their starters did play in that one. Tatum was in for that one. Holiday, White, Brown. So for the most part, the Celtics, all the Celtics starters did actually play in that one. So, but they do have 2 days off, but they're returning home from a Pacific Coast road trip, which is not the best scenario to be in. And they get Detroit, who, of course, notoriously just lost their now new NBA regular season record, 27th straight game, losing again to the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know, man. Maybe something's got to give here, but I would like it better if the Celtics had a bigger look ahead than having Toronto next, which I don't think is that much of a look ahead. Really, Toronto has not been playing well, so I don't know if that's that much to look forward to. But the Celtics are in a return home from a Pacific Coast road trip, which is generally not a good spot and leads to some distractions, and maybe they just won't take Detroit entirely seriously because they've lost 27 games in a row. So, yeah, the lean would be to the Pistons, but I just can't do it. It's too much of a mismatch. It depends on whether the Celtics are going to just like be like, well, we'll take it easy here, or if they're going to actually just show up again and keep their foot on the accelerator. I just don't know what to expect in this game at all. But generally, yes, it is not a very good spot for the Celtics. And then I think that's all of that. We do have an NFL game tonight, which I'll also reiterate what I'm about to say here in my NFL video that I put out in a little while. Jets, Browns, this is what we get for a Thursday night game now, just more total ugliness with a total that's down in the 34.5 range, even though it looks like the over has 80% of the cash, but only 69% of the tickets. So it looks like the over is actually getting more of the cash. I don't understand why. I mean, I guess it's because both of these teams have actually been scoring recently. Like Joe Flacco has actually been putting up good offensive numbers. The Jets have actually been scoring more than anticipated. But come on, man. The Jets have Trevor Siemian starting out because I think Zach Wilson is injured or something, and they're not going to play Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the year. So Trevor Siemian is the guy here. Joe Flacco's still an old man. I would not want to touch the total in this. I would not want to touch the over with two teams that they're still known for having really good defenses. And then that's also kind of the way I look at the side here, even though the Browns are up from 5.5 with juice, I guess. I don't know when that opener was because I never saw a line that was like less than like 7 here. Browns have gone up through the 7 almost to a 7.5 with reduced juice at least. And they have now 83% of the cash on them, but 78% of the tickets. I don't know about that cash discrepancy or that live move either. I think the Browns are going to be the public team with the way that they've been playing recently. They've been winning a ton of games. The public is not going to want to have anything to do with the Jets, as bad as they've been playing, as ugly as they've been. And that continued to be the case last week. The Browns blew out the Houston Texans, although it was the second Texans game without C.J. Stroud. So the Texans just really did not have a good offense. The Browns really stifled them, and the Browns put up a ton of offense too, but that's against a Texans defense that I don't think is very good. Jets defense is much better than the Texans defense is, at least. So the Browns have looked really good, looked like world beaters, and they're sitting in the top wild card spot. And I think they do have a little bit of padding there too, because they're sitting in the top wild card spot. I don't know if this might be a game where they might like take their foot off the gas maybe just a little bit because they've won so many games in a row. It's not quite a lock, but they're pretty close to having secured a playoff spot at this point. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to cause them to maybe overlook the Jets a little bit. And the Jets have just been playing awful. They lost 30-0 to Miami and got blanked. And then in last week's game, they almost lost to Washington. They were beating Washington early because Washington kept turning it over with Sam Howell. Jets were out to a 27-7 lead pretty late in the game. And then Washington turned it over to Jacoby Brissett, who the one thing that he's known for is not turning the ball over, and that got them right back into the game, and they wound up actually somehow taking the lead, even though Brissett is known as like a game manager and not turning the ball over. He somehow was able to actually help them score a bunch of points and get 3 straight touchdowns or whatever, and they wound up taking the lead, and then the Jets had to win right at the end on a field goal, which is just crazy. People are going to look at this and not want to have anything to do with the Jets in this game. The Browns have been winning a bunch of games, looked really good. The Jets are just horrendous. Nobody's going to want the Jets, especially with Trevor Siemian in there, so I do lean to taking the points with the Jets in this one, but this is not going to be one of my plays, but I think it's just fading recency bias. I think the line is a bit high on the Cleveland Browns, especially given that these are two teams that are more defensive than offensive teams here, despite the fact that they've been putting up some points recently. A lot of it, especially on the Jets side, has been that their defense has been putting them in positions to score more points. So I don't know, even though I think maybe Cleveland has also been doing some of that as well. But Flacco did have a huge game last week, but I think that was kind of an anomaly, kind of an outlier. That was against Houston's defense. The Jets defense is a different animal. So it is a Thursday night game, though, and the road teams that don't play in the home team's house that often tend to struggle a little bit on the short week on the Thursday games because they have less time to prepare and they're going into kind of an unfamiliar venue, and that is the case with the Jets. So that is a slight disadvantage for the Jets here, but even so, and these Thursday night games have also been like notoriously low scoring, even though that might be affecting the total and making it a little bit lower than maybe it should be. But even so, I don't know. It's in a game where it's mostly like teams that are just known for defenses like this, and the Browns have looked too good and the Jets have looked really bad. I think the only value to be had is probably by taking the points with the Jets with this fairly big number that's above a touchdown. So that's the way I look at all that. The only play I have today, though, in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, let's all be bad boys here, and let's get this one done with Rutgers. I got them at +1. I still like it with like -1, -2 even, or if you get the money line, as long as it's like under a field goal where you're basically just getting them to win the game, I think it's good. Oh, excuse me. Still getting over this illness too. Oh man, it sucks. But yes, Rutgers is the only play that I have today, and my play is at +1. Enjoy this really awful, ugly slate of games today, man. It is not a good-looking slate of games today in any of these sports, unfortunately. I'll have my NFL video up soon, at least. I got to figure out what plays I'm actually making, even though I'm on like 2 that I'm pretty sure well, one I'm already on, and another one I'm pretty sure I'm about to get on, and then I don't know if I'm going to have like 3 or maybe even 4, but we will see. Peace out.